Now we're going to look at how to take that layout and actually take the stuff from Photoshop and actually create a layout. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new site. I'm just going to call this demo. And it's probably going to complain I may have something called that already. So let's go out here and go to that demo folder that I had. It has my PSD in it, and generally I would recommend that you do not keep your PSD in there because you don't want to start uploading that and having that be part of your website. The PSD that you created is not actually part of the website, but I'm going to go ahead and choose this for now. Because remember, the most important thing about using Dreamweaver is you always have to have your site named and have it defined, because otherwise things are going to become all broken and lost. You don't want that to happen. I'm actually going to call this, rename that to _images. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a new page, and this is Dreamweaver CS6. The methodology that I'm going to employ for Dreamweaver CC is completely different. So if you are using CC, if you have the benefit of CC, please shut off this movie and go on to the next one, because it's going to have a better way for you. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a new page. And from here I can select something that is going to most fit what I'm trying to do. And in this instance, it's probably going to be this one column center fixed, because I already have the header. Remember, all I needed in here was a header, a nav bar, contents, and a footer, right? Really just those 4 sections. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this. It's centered, so it's perfect that way. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create it. Going to go ahead and take that, whatever it wants to call it, doesn't matter to me. And here is my basic page. You can see I have this set up. This is what it gives me. And I'm in split design, which is where you really always want to be. Let me shift this over. Now it puts in a lot of basic information that's just a bunch of junk. I want to get rid of a lot of that. But actually I'm fitting this design pretty straightforward. So I can go ahead and I can put in my logo here if I want. Drag that up, drop it in there. I want to put an alternate text in there. What that does is if there is someone who is using a reader, it will come up. I don't need a long description. So I'm just going to take that out. Okay, now this is on that background, which I don't really want. So I can actually take that out. If I go into my cascading style sheet, I can select for this particular thing by selecting this div tag here. You can see I have a background color and I don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to make my background color plain white, which makes my logo disappear, but you will see that I have a method to my madness actually. Actually, what I want to do is delete the background color altogether. I want this transparent. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this div layout that I have. This is all stuck within a container. So I know that I have this container thing here, and I want to actually put a background graphic in here as opposed to a background color. So I'm going to take out the background color, and I'm going to put in my background image, which was that cloud. So now you can see that I'm well on my way to having that. I can get rid of all of this text in here because it's black and means nothing to me. My footer down here, the footer div class, I also don't want to have a color or a background color, so I can take that out. Okay, now within this particular div, which is my content, I actually need two separate. I need a nav, and if I was going in HTML5, I would actually make, instead of making a div class, I would actually make a nav, but since I am using Dreamweaver 6 and kind of doing the old-fashioned way, I'm going to go ahead and make a div, and I'm going to give it the ID of nav. Go ahead and close that. Then the other one that I need is this one is called content, so I don't want to call this content. I'm going to call this just maybe main. Or if you want to start thinking about things in the more modern way, you would actually call this a section or an article perhaps. So I'll go ahead and call it section 1. Okay, so now I can go in my section 1 and say inside of this, actually this is my basic layout. You can't really see anything before I do anything. Let's go ahead and take a look at what I have. I'm going to go ahead and call this index. And it's not showing me a whole heck of a lot right now because I don't have anything in the footer, I don't have anything in the header or in the content, so it's not really showing me all of my graphic there, but this is exactly what I told it to do so far. So this logo here is all bumped up in the corner, and the reason why it's bumped up in the corner is because it is dumped right here in this header. So I'm actually going to wrap that in a div so that I can mess with its placement, and I'm going to call it logo actually. So I'm going to just go ahead and give it a class. And I have to remember to go ahead and close that at the end of this here. And now I know that I can go in and in this class here, I can go in and add some cascading style sheets, some CSS to it. So I'm going to go ahead on this. Oops. And I am going to give it some margins. I can either go through and do it right here. You see I hit this little plus sign, and now I'm going to go ahead and thank you. I'm going to go ahead and so I could just actually say just dot logo, it doesn't matter, but it's going to go ahead and do all of that. So go ahead and say OK. And what I want to do is go into the box model here, and I want to give it a little margin. And I'm most interested about giving it a top margin, which I'll go ahead and give that maybe 15 pixels. And then I'm interested in a left margin. Right now it says same for all. I don't want same for all. So this is actually, these are going to be 0 for now. And left is good, so I'm going to say OK. So that should bump that over. See how it put here? I have now a 15 pixel margin here and a 15 pixel margin here. So the other thing that I need to put in here is I need another div in the header. Remember I had, if you look at my Photoshop, I had these words up here, the setup instructions, and then the little cloud ping. So I'm going to want to make a place for that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put inside of the header here another div, but it has to stay inside of the header. So I'm going to go ahead and call this call it help. Close that. Now I know that I want some text inside of here, and I also want my little cloud ping, so I'm going to just go ahead here and say I don't even need to give this particular thing a class. I have two things in here, and they're just embedded one inside of the other. Okay, so in here now I can put my text that I think said setup instructions or something like that. That's going to actually show up black. I actually want all of my font on this whole page to be white, so I don't need to set that up here. I can set that up somewhere else. Or actually I want all of it in the header to be white. Once I put the other things, I'll probably put it on a white background, so I don't want that there. But here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert. So I'm going up here to the insert menu, which you don't see, but image. I need my help cloud. Now this whole div I'm going to float to the left. Actually, this whole div I'm going to float left. Which I'm going to do in the styles. Actually, I'm going to float it to the right. This particular logo I'm going to float. It's thinking that it's 100%, so I don't actually need it to be that big. So this logo here I'm actually going to, in the styles, float to the left. So if I hit the plus here for that, okay, box, because that deals with placement, that's going to float left. And so my little cloud goes over there. So let's go ahead and, actually the other thing I want to do with this before I go on, I want to make sure that all of my font color is white. So I'm going to go ahead, keep thinking, see, my fingers still want to do old style. I'm going to go ahead and for header, if I find it here, I'm actually going to give it some color. And I want the color to be white. So let's take a look and see how this is looking so far. Actually, I want to view this preview in Firefox, save. And so it's got that. I need to, actually both of these right now are floating to the right, so it's a little messed up there, but we can go in and tinker with it. So now clicking in here and looking at my source code, I can start putting things in my nav bar if I wanted to. See, if I wanted to put in some sprites, I can insert here. Say spry, I could put in a menu bar, for instance, or tapped panels, anything I wanted to do. Horizontal menu bar. Go in and say what these things are. But if this now is giving me trouble, and if I take a look at it and it's on top of things, I know that I need to bump this down. So I've gone ahead and I tinkered a little bit with some things here to give you examples of how things are laid out using the div method, the traditional, well, somewhat traditional, the cascading style sheets after tables method that some of you will probably find easier. And you can see here that I have, to refresh this, if you look at, there we go, have my live view here. If you look back here at what I have in Firefox, you can't see behind there, but I do have my logo as you saw at the end of the movie. I went ahead and I put a nav bar in here. And the way I went ahead and I put a nav bar in was by just inserting the spry. And then with that spry, it's the nav bar. Actually, I think it's it was a spry nav bar, which I just dropped in. I believe that's in the last video. I'm in that nav, ID nav. So I went ahead and I put that 100% across, and I gave it a background color of that gray so that it matched the buttons. And by putting it 100% across, it went ahead and dropped below the logo bar, because before that it was trying to sit next to the logo bar because it would fit. Here, watch what happens. Actually, well, we'll mess with that here in a second. So that section 1, which is this white box, I'm going to show you some absolute positioning. There's a couple ways actually I could position that. But right now I'm going to show you position absolute. So I'm going to go ahead and say position, I'm going to say absolute, and that will position it in a pixel position within the container that is holding it. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it top, and you can do right, left, whatever you want to do, but I'm going to go ahead and do top. And through some experimentation, I found out that what I want it to be is 200 pixels from the top. So semicolon there. And if I go to live view here, turn it off and turn it on. That bumped it down. Now it's still not in the right position, and I can look at this, and I have given this an actual width of 600 pixels, and my container I know is 1000 pixels, so I can do 200 pixels on both sides of this. So if I go down here, I'm going to go ahead and give it a margin, because remember the box model. The margin is going to be space on the outside of the actual container, so I'm going to say margin right, 200 pixels. Just go ahead and take a look at it. Oops. Let's try margin left. Sometimes it's actually reversed of what I expect it to be. There we go. And so now I've moved it by doing margin left, which I guess it's if it was facing you, it's the way it goes. So there's my thing, and then I have the footer, which is down below, but it's actually been bumped a little bit below. But I could put my footer information down there. If I look at Dreamweaver, not quite sure what happened to my footer. Let's go back to the main page. But anyway, you can see that it's a matter of moving things around and bumping around and seeing how things go. But absolute positioning is your friend, margins and padding are your friend, and that's how you actually are going to get things to show up where they need to show up. Now notice here in Dreamweaver it's a little bit different. It's showing my box over here, and my footer seems to be missing. So sometimes what you think you see in Dreamweaver, there we go, if I hit the live button it comes back. What you think you see in Dreamweaver is not necessarily what's there. But you can see how by tinkering and moving things around, you're going to get basically what you're looking for.